Immigration. We're here to get our visa cards today. Hola! I wanted to describe our day at the INM and provide a detailed account. So I couldn't film much at the INM. It was a long day. In total, it took about 6 hours, much of which Don and I were in separate areas. So I was outside waiting with our facilitator as I had finished in about 2 hours. And Don was inside waiting to be called for the first process. So his process took longer as he had to wait for others ahead of him. So my appointment was at 9 o'clock in the morning and Don's was at 10 a.m. And the reason for the 1 hour gap, as our facilitator explained, was because appointments go very quickly when he schedules them online. And by the time he was done entering all of my information for my appointment at 9 a.m., the next available appointment was 10 a.m. for Don. So our facilitator advised us to leave our hotel around 7:30 a.m. due to rush hour traffic. And we got to the INM a little after 8 a.m. The INM in Cancun, it doesn't open until 9 a.m. and there are benches outside as well as inside. However, when you're waiting to be called, you must wait outside. There was also an unarmed security guard stationed outside. He was a really nice older gentleman. Our facilitator arrived about 10 minutes after we did, and he had a manila folder for each of us. So my folder contained a little more information than Don's because of the one and the same person affidavit that I had gotten the day before. And our facilitator added that to my folder, along with a copy of our marriage certificate and the apostille that was translated to Spanish. Inside our folders was the application for the temporary residency. I have some copies of the paperwork, but the clerk at the INM took most of it. There was a personal data sheet and a page that listed where we currently reside in Quintana Roo. The clerk took that page, but since we don't live in Mexico yet, our facilitator added the address of a friend's Airbnb. And before we went inside the INM, we memorized where we lived in case we were asked about it, but neither one of us were asked. When the INM opened, a woman with a clipboard came out and had paper numbers for everyone to take. And since our facilitator wasn't there yet, I went to the queue and I grabbed a number for Dawn and myself. And then our facilitator got there and said that we had appointments and we really didn't need those numbers. I was one of the first people called into the INM at 9 o'clock in the morning. Our facilitator went in with me to sign me in, but then he had to step outside as he wasn't allowed to wait with me inside. So he told me to go to the first row of seats and sit and wait until called. The inside of the INM had benches and looked kind of like a DMV with glass partitions. So I purposely didn't take any pics inside because I didn't want to jeopardize our visa process. And I can't find any pics online of the inside of the INM. I was called up right away to one of the windows and I handed the clerk or agent all of my paperwork as we were instructed by our facilitator. So we didn't exchange any words except when she told me to sign or write my name. Our facilitator told us before going in that nombre means to type or write your name and firma means to sign. So this initial process took probably 20 to 30 minutes where I stood at the window. And the agent entered all of the information that I provided and she made copies of everything in my folder and I signed each copy. And so I mostly signed with my first and last name, no middle name, except when I got to the receipt with the unique processing number. When I signed and wrote out my first and last name, she said no. And she pointed to my first, middle, and last name, which is what is in my passport and what is printed on my temporary resident card. So on the other copy, that's how I signed it, first, middle, and last, and she kept that copy. And when I saw Don again outside, I told him that he also needed to do this on his receipt. The clerk then pointed to the credit card machine to my left, and I paid the 5,570 Mexican pesos, or roughly $266. She then motioned for me to go outside and wait, and a few minutes later, Don was called in. But he ended up sitting inside for a lot longer than I did. He sat for about 2 hours before the agent called him up. Both the metal benches outside and the cramped benches inside, even though they were cushioned, they were uncomfortable. The outside area was covered and there were plenty of shady trees, but it was still pretty hot outside. The inside, it was air conditioned. I also listened to our facilitator who told us to bring drinks and snacks. So while Don was waiting inside, our facilitator received my approval and my authorization, which happened within an hour after I handed in all my paperwork. And a few minutes later, I was called back inside. I saw Don sitting in the waiting area and I was ushered into the back office. I was asked if I spoke Spanish so that the agent knew which language to interview me in. In the back office are several desks. I was asked several questions, including if I work in my home and what my monthly salary was. So I didn't have to show this, but I had to state it. I was also asked what my college major was, and the agent looked kind of perplexed when I stated English literature. He admitted that the word literature was hard for him to pronounce, so we worked on it together. He asked me where I lived in the United States, if I had any tattoos and where they were located. He asked if I had children and what my job title was. He then said that if I'm going to live in Mexico, that I must learn Spanish, and I assured him that I would. After the interview, he took photos of me from the front, the left side, the right side. I had to pull the hair from my forehead. I had to tuck the hair behind my ears. I also noticed that other women were asked to remove their earrings before entering the INM, and I didn't wear any jewelry other than my wedding ring and my grandmother's ring. The agent then went to the printer and retrieved my temporary resident visa. I got up to leave and I walked back through the lobby where I flashed my card to Don. Don didn't have as extensive of an interview that I had because his agent didn't speak much English. Our facilitator then sent me my CURP letter via WhatsApp, as well as Don's approval letter. The CURP number is needed for things like opening a bank account and getting a driver's license. Our facilitator stayed with us the entire process. His wife even joined him for some of the day. He also had another couple that were changing over to permanent residence. They were Canadian and they were building a house on Isla Mujeres. I remember the husband saying, "Just be patient here. It takes a lot longer to do things here. We waited 8 months to get the deed to the house that we bought." So we finished up around 1:30 p.m. and I paid our facilitator via Zelle for both the remainder of his fee as well as the prep work for the affidavit for the one and the same. I transferred $375 USD to him via Zelle. In total, we paid our facilitator $675 USD. And there is no way we're doing the renewal process without the help of a facilitator. I mean, he was there every step of the way. He had all of the documents prepared. He had a good relationship with the personnel at the INM, and he knew the process inside and out. So he was worth every peso. Speaking of renewals, as we were waiting for Don to complete his process, our facilitator got an email that some places in Mexico, such as Playa del Carmen, were going to start requesting 3 months of bank statements and proving economic solvency for renewals. And it caught our facilitator by surprise. He didn't know about this new requirement. And it scares us because we don't feel comfortable moving our pets and ourselves down to Mexico on a 1-year temporary visa. I would feel much better if we renewed for another 3 years and then moved us all down. But there's also talk about having to live in Mexico to renew your visa as well. You know, so much can change over the next year, and we're scared about what the renewal requirements will be next February when it's time to renew. In the meantime, we are now temporary residents of Mexico, and we are happy to have made it through this process.